Okay, I think that that had considerable effect in um, probably shifting some people, uh, Republican and independent moderates, much more in the direction of Obama, because it very clearly was just this dismissal of the idea of women's health is just not significant, not to be considered. It's some kind of fancy excuse that is brought forward. But be that as it may, I mean, when you see something like this so close to the election, I think inevitably you keep seeing things that you have seen yourself reenacted in the last 6, 12, 18 months. Again, the face in the close-up is essential to the effectiveness of this scene. We can see that the film re-dramatizes two of the signal events of the previous decade. That is, the film comes out in 2000. The hearings on Clarence Thomas's nomination to the Supreme Court and the testimony of Anita Hill about his sexual harassment of her, and then how that matter was turned against her. And that is one of those moments where any number of commentators called it an ideological rape of Anita Hill, in contradistinction to Clarence Thomas's saying that he was undergoing a legal lynching or something like that. The other event, of course, was the Clinton impeachment hearings, which were only a few years before, and which involved detailed reports of the Clinton-Lewinsky encounters as part of these very highly partisan maneuverings. In this case, the political strategy of trying to gain advantage over an opponent by bringing forward what is normally considered personal and private, and thus humiliating them, is emphatically amplified by raising the issue of the double standard for personal sexual histories of men and women. Joan Allen, as Lane Hansen, is again the moral center, holding to her personal ethical standard in a hostile and increasingly misogynist situation. There's another key scene which comes a little bit after this, which I'll just describe. Under continuing pressure, it's the next witness in the congressional thing is a woman who says that Lane Hansen had had an affair with her husband, and the affair, the husband then left and is now the present husband of Lane Hansen. So she's accused of being a homewrecker, basically, by implication in this. And so it seems like things are going downhill on Capitol Hill in terms of her nomination. So then there's another key scene where the president, Jeff Bridges, is in the Oval Office with his chief of staff, played by Sam Elliott, and Lane Hansen has to show up to discuss what to do at the next hearing. They tell her to confess to these improprieties, and she refuses to do that, saying that she will resign first. A tear wells up, and this is an extreme close-up. A tear wells up and rolls down her face. At this point, the president changes his opinion and says she should stand up and fight for her principles and show everyone why he nominated her. She then returns and at the next committee meeting declares her key policy stands while continuing to say nothing about her personal life and her past. Okay, so it's like she then, at that point things shift and she starts to get the advantage over the people that are trying to tear her down. But it's interesting because this is not a perfect feminist drama. If you've seen it before, the final scene is the president goes to Congress and then lectures them and throws out the rascal, the Gary Oldman villain, humiliating him in front of the entire Congress and declaring that we have to get beyond this kind of gender discrimination and so forth. So it becomes almost an anthem at that point of celebration and of this new day that's dawning in America. In conclusion, American cinema has a wide variety of strategies for dramatizing American politics, ranging from the sober examination of moral and ethical issues, as we see them here, to wild comedy, to action-adventure films, from sharp satire to sentimental romanticism. And this also, I think, represents the variety of American attitudes to politics, ranging from the genius of the American system, which obviously there's some truth in that. It's an unusual and interesting system when you look at it in a global, historical, worldwide sense, to politics being a necessary evil that should be checked and reduced as much as possible. We shouldn't forget that this is a function of US democracy as a political idea and as a lived practice. But we can also see that the representation of politics and power in the commercial system of Hollywood film excuse me, is also bound up to a melodramatic presentation of power in its social basis in personal life. The behind the scenes is necessary for dramatic interest, but also because deep down we do believe that personal decisions matter. We think of this ourselves when we go and vote. We think that our leaders, when we examine them, we think that of our leaders when we examine them, or when we praise them in election oratory, or when we mock them on The Daily Show. We think that the personal does matter. It's not just abstract policy position statements. Nixon and the contender fall on the very serious side of representing public life. Oliver Stone's psycho-portrait of a deeply flawed man attempts to understand Nixon the man, but also, I think, I would argue, the US as a nation and as a national culture. This is the leader that this country deserved at that moment in history. And the contender brought forth recent elements of national culture, especially the Clinton impeachment process, bringing a key change by updating it with an analysis of gender politics and asking the audience to themselves question what they think of the double standard and just how much private or personal information the public should have in judging public figures. The optimism that we have today following the presidential election, or that many people have following the election, the hope for change and the general enthusiasm for the dawn of a new day in US politics was shaped, at least to some degree, by both of these films. They helped us imagine a powerful and flawed leader, which continues in Stone's W, and they helped us think about gender politics in the public sphere. Thank you.